Hey guys, and welcome to our Pygame tutorial here on the Coder's Legacy channel. In this video we'll take a look at how to create buttons in Pygame. So the thing is, you might have noticed already that Pygame has no built-in feature for buttons. Okay, you can't just write something like buttons and pass in a bunch of parameters and get a button. No, you can't do that. This isn't Takinter or some other GUI library. Okay, this is a game library, and pretty much every game library that I've come across, whether in Python or some other language, you need to basically create the button from scratch. Okay, now luckily we don't need to create it from from scratch, because we already have some things. Like we have a feature for text, we have a feature for creating rects, we have a feature for detecting mouse presses. So we're going to combine these three things together and create a button, okay, in Pygame. So let's get started then, shall we? By the end of this, basically I'll provide you guys, what we'll be making here today is really a button class. Okay, and this is going to be really cool because we just create the button class and then we can use it anywhere in Pygame, in any Pygame project. Okay, it's going to be fully customizable, really flexible, and it's going to be really easy. We'll be done within just 10 minutes, maybe less. So let's go ahead and import Pygame, and then let's do some basic stuff like initialize Pygame. Let's create the display surface. And by the way, if you don't understand any of this over here, like if there's something you don't understand, then please do check out the links in the description. I'll have a lot of stuff over there. I have a lot of tutorials on Pygame. Okay, there's a lot of info in there. Okay, so yeah, here's our game loop, and this, by the way, display is our Pygame window that we'll be drawing on. This while loop over here is our game loop. Okay, so for event in pygame.event.get, okay, this is our event loop. Here's a compulsory check that I need to add for closing the window. Okay, otherwise it won't close properly when we press the X button. So pygame.quit and sys.exit. Sys is it's a library from the standard Python library. Okay, I need to import that over here. Import sys. Okay, and there's one more statement before we're done with our base code. Pygame.display.update. Okay, great. Let's run this code now, and we have our Pygame window. Awesome. Okay, so now we begin creating the button. Okay, and I'll just make the class over here. I missed S. Okay, class button. I'll make the init function. Okay, and by the way, this class is going to be fully portable. Okay, we're just going to pass in a bunch of parameters. We're going to make the object, and then that's it. We'll render it in the game loop, and we can create 10 buttons, 20, 30, whatever, however many you want, just by this one class. Okay, we don't need to define the same button 10 times. Okay, so yeah, again, that's the benefit of using classes. So here's just a bunch of parameters I'm taking, X and Y. Okay, because X and Y for the position where we want the button to appear. Okay, and then I'll take another stuff like width, the width of the button, height of the button, and most importantly the text that we want to appear on the button. Okay, so these are all the parameters that I'm going to be passing into it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is make the background of the button. There are two things, right? The background and the foreground. The background is the thing the button is drawn on, like a black rectangle, for instance, or something. Okay, and the foreground is the text on the button. Okay, like the actual text, like click me or something. Okay, so I'll make this background with pygame.rect. Okay, I'll pass in a bunch of parameters, x, y, width, and height, and yes, it completely matches our first four parameters. Okay, because that's actually what a rect takes. Okay, and I have a whole video on that, so you can go check that out if you want to. Okay, so self.bg. Okay, we have that, and now what do we do? Hold on, let me think about this. Okay, first let's go ahead and draw this. Okay, let's draw this to the screen and see what happens. Okay, so for that I'll make a new function called render. Okay, and what we'll do is that we can't use display.blit like we usually would. Okay, I need to take display here, by the way. Okay, so we can't do it like that because the rects have their own special drawing system, which is pygame.draw.rect. Okay, this takes 3 parameters. The first parameter, what was the first parameter? It's display, right? The surface that we're going to draw to. The second one is the color. Okay, I want it to be white because the background is currently black. So We'll just keep that white. Okay, and what is the third parameter? The rect that we're drawing, which is self.bg. Okay, so let's come down here and make a button. Okay, what are the parameters? The x position can be 200, the y position can be 100, the width can be 80, the height can be 30, and the text can be button. Okay, now let's come down here and just pass in one simple line, button.render, and what is this going to be? It's going to be display, right? Run, and there you go. There's our button. Okay, and of course this is just the first part, and now we're going to be adding in the text and centering it on it, and then we're going to be doing the third part, which is the final part, which is basically making the mouse interaction with the button. Okay, so yeah, how do I get the text now? Well, for the text, what I first need to do is go over here and define something called self.button text. Okay, and actually before that, I'll make something called self.font is equal to hold on, let me try to remember this. Of course, pygame.font.sysfont Verdana. I just like using Verdana, by the way, and I'll pass in the font size, which is 20. Okay, font type Verdana and font size is 20. Okay, so what am I missing? I think there's right, got it. Self.font.render. The render function takes 3 parameters. By the way, what I just did here, let me just clarify. This is the font, okay, that we're going to be using. I generated it using the system font and of this size. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is basically generate a surface object. Okay, because Pygame basically has those, right? Those surface objects like images and stuff that you can draw. Okay, so that's what self.button is. Okay, self.button text. It's basically an image of the text that we're drawing to the screen. Okay, so what I'm doing here is basically rendering that text. So what's it gonna be? The first parameter is gonna be the text. So of course, no, we already have the text that we're taking in from here. This is a string, by the way. The first parameter is a string. So the second parameter is going to be a Boolean value on whether you want anti-aliasing disabled or not. Anti-aliasing is basically something, it's a technology that smooths out the edges on your font, okay, and you generally want this, okay, so keep that true. The third one is the color of the font. Since the background is white, I'll pick a black color, okay, and that's our text. Now I'll come down here and say display.blit self.button text, and I'll draw this currently to using the coordinates in the background, okay, meaning the x and y position. Okay, it's the same thing, and let me just go ahead and do it like this. I'll make a tuple of the x and y values. Okay, you can either use a rect over here if you want to, or you can use the x and y values that we entered over here. Okay, let's just run this and see what happens. Oh, okay. The reason that's not happening is because those are parameters in the init function. So let's just keep it simple and just use the rect. Okay. Alright, there you go. There's our button. But there's a slight problem, and let me further elaborate on this by increasing the size of the button to 140. You'll understand soon enough what the problem is. There you go. Do you see the problem now? The problem is that the font is not being centered. Don't worry about this, and I will fix this right away. Okay, so what we need to do actually is self.button text, okay, and we need to actually get the rect from it. Okay, we need to get the rect from it, and let's just call this rect self.pause, pause rect. Okay. Okay, now what getRect does, it can basically retrieve a rect from the surface objects, okay, like images. Okay, we use a getRect on images as well. Okay, you might have used that. That's very common. So button text is also sort of an image, so we're using getRect on it. Okay, now what we really need from this is using the center command. Center is a very useful tool, a very useful command that we can use to center this rect. Okay, now what do I want to center it around? That's the question. I want to basically center the rect, okay, in such a way. Let me see, self.bg.x plus self.bg.width divided by 2, comma, because center takes two values, an x position and a y position. Self.bg.y plus self.bg.height divided by 2. And let's just bring this down here. Okay, and that looks good. Okay, so basically what this does is returns a rect which is centered around this location. Okay, now maybe you didn't understand what was really going on. Let me just show you this output, assuming I did this correctly, and then I'll re-explain this. Okay, don't worry. There you go, a fully centered button text. Okay, alright, so we're almost done here. Let's just go ahead and add in the mouse interaction now. So basically we need to add in the ability to detect button presses. Okay, so I'll make a function for that called update. Okay, and I'm going to take three parameters. One is the compulsory self, one is event, and one is mouse position. Okay, now I'm going to leave this blank for now. Okay, and let me just do one or two things first. I want to come up here and create a new function called fire. This is just a random name, by the way. So, or you know what, I'll call it button command. I think that'll make you guys understand that a bit more. So I'll write over here that when this function is called, say this, or just say button has been clicked. Okay, and now I'm going to come down here, here first, and add in a new parameter called command. And here in the button, when I'm creating the class, I'm going to say button command. Okay, what did I just do here? I passed in the function name. Okay, and remember, do not include those parentheses. Okay, do not include those brackets, because otherwise it's going to be a function call, not the function name. Okay, that's a very common mistake. So what we're doing here is really passing it into our button. Okay, so over here I'm just going to do self.command is equal to command, and we can now access this over here. So basically what we're going to do here is set up a few conditions, and if those conditions are true, we'll call command, okay, as a function call, and this function will be called, which is basically exactly how a real button works. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is say if event.type is equal to pygame.mouse button down. Okay, if a mouse key has been pressed. Okay, that's what we're doing here, event. Okay, and you know what, let me just make this a bit simpler for you guys and do this. I'll write the update function, the update call over here first. It's going to be event. Okay, and actually I just realized that I'm going to have to do this because the events are going to change all the time, right? So I'm going to need to actually do this in here. A bit annoying, but okay, you know what? I'll make this a bit simpler. I'll take this and put this over here and put this over here. I think this will actually make it easier for you guys, and it also makes more sense, come to think of it. Okay, I'll use the getPause function over here, pygame.mouse.getPause. This returns the position of the mouse. Okay, so well, obviously what's going on here is that if the mouse key is detected, if it's pressed, then I want you to call the button.update function. Okay, and that the update function basically is going to pass in the position of the mouse. And what I'm going to do here finally, if self.bg, which is the rect, and remember, rects are used basically for collision. Okay, so what I'm going to do is use one of those collision functions, collide point. Collide point basically we use it to detect whether a rect and a point are colliding. Okay, whether that point, whether that coordinate is within the rect or not. So what I'm going to do is say that if self.bg, which is the button basically, if it collides with the mouse position where the mouse currently is, then I want you to call self.command like that, like so. Okay, let's I hope this works. Okay, and no, why not? It says button command is not defined. Spelling mistake. Okay, sure, why not? Now let's run this one more time, and it's definitely gonna work. I really hope so. There you go. Awesome. See? So let's go ahead and create one or two more, okay? Because why not? So I'll call this button command 2. I know I'm not very creative with this. And I'll say button 2 has been clicked. Okay? And I'll come down here, create a new one, button 2, and pass in some different coordinates. Okay, maybe make it a bit smaller. Call it button 2 and just pass in button 2 over here. And there you go. Wait, hold on. Why didn't it appear? Of course, because I'm not calling button 2. But if you think about it, it's going to be a real pain calling each button over here. Like if you make 10 buttons, are you going to write 10 render statements for each one of them? So you know what? Let's make life easier on us and call pygame.sprite.sprite. Sorry, not call. We're going to inherit button from pygame.sprite.sprite. And why am I doing this? You'll understand in a minute. So basically, inheriting from pygame.sprite.sprite actually gives us the ability to make sprite groups, okay, or basically to put these objects of the class button into sprite groups, okay. And the reason we use sprite groups is something really awesome and really cool that I'll show you right now. So let me just double check everything over here. Everything's okay, right? No, hold on, one thing. I need to call super.init, and yeah, this. The reason I need to call this is because pygame.sprite.sprite needs to be initialized, okay. This basically initializes the parent, okay. It initializes the parent that we're inheriting from, okay. So you need to include this, okay, whenever you're inheriting from pygame.sprite.sprite. So I'll come down here and create a sprite group. I'll call it button group, okay, is equal to pygame.sprite.group, okay. And what I'm going to do here is button, so what am I doing, sorry, button group dot add button, okay, then button group dot add button 2, okay, and I'll just remove this, okay, we don't need this anymore, and I'll replace this with one line that says, sorry, 2 lines, or one maybe, for button in button group button dot render. And by the way, this button has nothing to do with this button. Just so we're clear, I'll actually change the names a bit. Okay, button dot render display. So if there are 20 buttons in button group, all of them will be rendered. Okay, I'll do the same thing over here. Let's just make this a bit shorter. Copy paste this. Let's move fast. And there you go. Okay, so same thing, we're iterating over it and then just calling that. Okay, so that's all we're doing here. Okay, now let me run this. Okay, what's wrong? Hold on, let's do this again. Button is not defined. Really? Oh, sure. Okay, sorry about that. Let's do this again. And there you go. I clicked on this button. Okay, and that's a problem. Sorry. I mean, it's all working correctly. The problem is over here, actually, that button 2 doesn't seem to fit, but this is easily fixed. Okay, you can just include a statement that if the width of button 2, if the width of the text on button 2 is larger than the width of the rect, okay, then throw an error or something like that, okay, like a warning or something. But basically, for all intents and purposes, these buttons are now working. Now this is where I'm going to end this video because we're far past the 10-minute mark. Okay, we're like 15 minutes in, I think. So yeah, this is some pretty good code. It's a pretty good base. It's not perfect. I mean, not perfect in the sense that we can improve upon this much more. Okay, so we can add in stuff like highlighting. Okay, you get a hovering effect. You move over the button, it changes color or something like that. You can add in the ability to have an image as the background. Okay, in the button. There's a lot of stuff that we can add. If you're interested, let me know in the comment section below, and maybe I'll go ahead and make a part 2 on this video where we add in special effects into the buttons and more options. So yeah, let me know if you guys are interested, and of course leave a like and subscribe, okay, because that's important for supporting the channel. And yeah, see you guys in a later video.